Hey guys, it's Frozenballz here, and today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking specifically about XP and focus farming. I'll still be covering all the warframes, but I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Since warframe is more or less a looter-shooter and, grinding and farming is one of the main elements of the game, I figured I might as well talk about something which is a bit more dear to our hearts. In this particular case, it will be leveling up warframes, weapons, sentinels, kubros, pets, and all that kind of stuff. Since we also have a focus system in the game, and there's no reason not to actually do your focus farming, I might as well explain that in the same video itself. Now, when we talk about XP farming or focus farming, the main underlying statement is this: the XP per minute is the most important thing as opposed to big numbers. The purpose of this video is to basically show you different places you can go to farm your XP or focus very quickly and efficiently. Now, when it comes to XP farming, there are two main methods of going about. The first one is just brute force, and the other one is stealth. Now, before we talk about stealth, let's talk about brute force. Brute force XP farming revolves around the idea of having a high spawn flow of enemies and maintaining a high kill rate as well for that high XP per minute. Missions that facilitate this type of gameplay include survivals, interceptions, and to an extent even defense missions as well. The reason that these mission types are usually used for XP leveling is for the simple reason that there are high spawn flows and usually enemies are respawning instantly when they get killed. And as I keep repeating, it's all about the XP per minute, which is based on how many enemies you kill per minute as well. In terms of survivals, enemies will just keep coming until you decide to extract or they kill you. In terms of interceptions, enemies keep respawning even after you kill platoon after platoon of enemies until the wave is over. So in a scenario like this, if you can maintain a high kill rate by killing them as soon as they come out of their spawn rooms, you're guaranteeing yourself a high XP per minute through that. When it comes to defense missions, it's sort of similar where you basically want to go through the waves as fast as you can, and this is done by killing them very, very quickly. If you go like, say for example, 20 waves on a card, you can actually level up your gear pretty well because the enemies mostly are high level or elite enemies, and killing them gives you a bigger chunk of XP. One of the main things to understand is that if you kill high-level enemies or elite enemies or even Exilus-based enemies, you will get a higher amount of XP out of them because they have a higher value in general as opposed to the trash mobs. So in an ideal situation for power leveling, you want to do something which is mid to high level, so about level 30 to level 40 at the most. So that way you can have the maximum impact of your XP farming. One of the things which I need to explain is acquisition of XP. If you kill an enemy with your warframe ability, all of the affinity goes to your warframe. If you kill an enemy with your weapon, half of the affinity goes to your warframe and half of it goes to the weapon that was used to kill the enemy. When you are near a teammate that kills an enemy, you get the same total affinity, but it is split according to your weaponry. It doesn't reduce the amount of affinity that you gained by the killing player, and it doesn't reduce the affinity gained towards nearby allies either. When it comes to Archwing, it's a little bit different because the shared affinity range are a bit different as well. There are other ways of gaining affinity as well, such as using your abilities, hacking terminals, completing challenges or objectives, or picking up affinity orbs or scanning with your codex scanner and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, the gains that you get from those methods is not high enough to really matter in this scenario. The underlying statement is the more you kill and the faster you kill, the quicker you level up. Simple really. On the topic of team compositions and maps, let's talk about Akkad first of all. Akkad is a high-level defense mission against the infested. It is a dark sector. The reason this place is such a good map is because it's a tiny map, it doesn't change, the spawns spawn in very, very quickly and they come straight to the pod as well. And you can kill them very, very quickly for one of the highest XP per minute from a defense mission. Being a high-level node means there are more elite enemies, high-level enemies, as well as Xmas units spawning in, which gives you a higher XP per kill. This makes Akkad a much more desirable node to run. In terms of team compositions, any set of warframes that facilitate or increase the speed of your XP per minute is what you want to be taking. Speed Nova works very, very well because it speeds up the rate at which enemies come to the slaughterhouse. In terms of a DPS frame, Ember works very, very well, Mirage works as well as Mace's Peacemaker build. There are some other alternatives you could go with, but those are the three main ones which I'm going to talk about. This usually leaves 2 spots open for people to leech, unless the people are leveling up only weapons, in which case, take a buffer frame. In terms of maps, there are other alternatives which exist. Barahinia is an interception node, for example. Hydron is another defense map which you can use as well. But in the end, it's not so much about the maps itself, it's about maintaining a high kill per minute, really. There is an alternative which I'm going to talk about, and that is stealth leveling. Now, let me just mention this real quick. Stealth leveling is not the same as what it used to be before, because with the recent change that came out with the War Within, you could basically use stealth missions to maximize your weapons and warframes, etc. in a matter of minutes. This was done by doing stealth exterminates with a teammate who would kill everything with a stealth multiplier, and you would get the stealth affinity as well. Since they changed it that you can't actually get stealth affinity from teammates anymore doing all the killing, You now have to do the killing yourself, and as we know about the way XP is distributed, this makes it much more slower than leveling up multiple weapons and a warframe on a card as well. But it's an alternative way to play, and I still use it from time to time when I've only got one weapon to level up, because it's just one of those things you can just go and do it on your own. You can do it solo. You don't actually need a team, you don't need to pug, you don't need to do any of that kind of stuff. In terms of stealth, the way they've changed it now is enemies get alerted much easier, whether it's an arrow whizzing past their head if it doesn't kill them, whether it's you breaking a chest, whether it's you breaking a vent, whether it's you killing an enemy within their line of sight or within their detection range, and they can actually see a dead body of their teammate. This means for leveling, you're not going to be taking a Loki or an Equinox because you do not have control over what enemies get alerted and remain unalerted. And since technically you would have to wait for the enemies to become unalerted, it's a waste of time. Because of this, the only viable choice you have left is an ivara. For people who don't know, ivara's sleep arrows put enemies into an unalerted state when they wake up from the sleep arrows. This makes her the best at doing stealth exterminates because you can define which enemy remains alerted or unalerted. You will not be able to level up teammates anymore because of the nerf that came in, so there is that. This is more or less just a solo endeavor. In terms of play style and maps, Adaro is probably the best map to go against. It's a high-level exterminate versus Grineer enemies. Grineer missions tend to be the best ones to go for. Corpus have nullifiers, bursas, null, and combas. Those are just annoying enemies. Same with ancients, same with void. In terms of gameplay, you literally take an ivara into an exterminate because most of the enemies spawn in unalerted, and that's one of the biggest factors about this. You basically use your sleep arrows to put a bunch of enemies within range to sleep or within line of sight so that, they don't get alerted, and then you just proceed to kill them one at a time. One of the good things about ivara is you've got a grace period of about a second when you put enemies to sleep, and another grace period of about a second when you wake up enemies. As long as those animations are still playing for putting them to sleep or them waking up, those enemies will still remain unalerted during that time, so that even if you're using a weapon that doesn't one-shot them, you can still kind of kill them as long as you do it within that time. If you don't kill them in that time, you put them back to sleep and then you carry on killing them so long as they're not alerted. And because of the fact that ivara has this kind of control, it's the biggest reason why you would actually take ivara. Again, because of the way XP is shared between the weapon that is killing enemies and the warframe, you can only level up one weapon at a time with this particular combo. Having said that, it's still fairly quick, so if you've only got one weapon to level up, it's not that bad. Like, you can just do it solo if you had to do it. In terms of builds, the ivara build is more or less pretty straightforward. It's just the arrow build which you would use, and then whatever weapon you use, make sure you have the hush mod on it. Those are the two main methods people tend to use for leveling up warframes and weapons. Now that XP farming is out of the way, let's talk about focus farming. In the previous iterations of focus farming, you could get a lot of XP by just, doing it because there were no caps, there were no changes, etc. And of course, as changes came on, we have the system that we have now, which is using a convergence crystal, which gives you a biggest focus bonus when you actually use it. Taking everything into account, stealth exterminates are probably going to be still the best way to actually do your focus farming. The only difference here is, for me, the way I do focus farming now is, instead of using an ivara, I tend to use an equinox using the rest build and a Secura lecta. The Secura lecta having such massive range with the slide attack and doing so much damage and having a fast rate of fire is one of the ideal weapons to take. Using equinox kind of works because when you use the rest build with the augment, you have a never-ending CC bonus chain going off. And since exterminate missions now start with the enemies unalerted, you can do a stealth run and basically get massive focus out of that as well at the same time. The biggest difference between Equinox and ivara is the fact that while ivara can put enemies into an unalerted state, Equinox cannot do that. So bearing that in mind, you want to basically make sure that you CC the entire room before you go ahead and kill everything, which basically means just spam your 2 ability over and over and over until everything is locked down, and then you just use your slide attack and you just kill them all. Ideally, you want to be picking up your convergence crystal before you kill enemies, that way you get your focus bonus as well, and just basically repeat until you hit your daily focus cap. To be honest, outside of the passives, focus isn't really that great. There isn't any reason to actually use it. However, there are many builds which I use, especially in the Minmaxing series, that utilize different focus schools. For that particular reason, I would highly recommend that you actually do your focus farming and get at least the passives unlocked in every single school. It's better to have something available and not use it, as opposed to not being able to use it because you don't have it available. Even if you do this on a daily basis, it takes about half an hour at most, so you can get this done fairly quickly. I think that's pretty much it for this particular video. Again, to summarize, if you're going to be leveling up multiple weapons as a batch processing thing, you're probably better off doing something like a card and being a leech over there, or even Berahinia or Hydron or any of those other nodes. High kill per minute rate is basically going to guarantee that you level up your weapons really quickly. But having said that, if you've only got one weapon at a time that you want to level up, stealth exterminates still work, even though they are a bit slower and a bit more finicky. Focus farming still works with stealth exterminates. Just take an equinox and a Secura lecta and you're more or less good to go, really. There are a couple of other ways which you could do it, but those are way too complicated for what it requires and how much gain you get out of it, so I wouldn't really recommend those methods. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Do appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed this particular video. It's a slightly different thing from what I usually do. And again, if you like what you saw, make sure you hit a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.